There's a moment in life when you realize people don't see you the way they used to. Not because you've disappeared, but because in some quiet way you've become invisible to them. For some, this is a tragedy. For others, it's a kind of freedom. Today, we're exploring why this happens, and why for many men, it's not the ending of their story, but the beginning of a deeper chapter. By the end, you'll see how invisibility, silence, and pulling away are not weaknesses, but signs of a man's evolution, and why understanding this can change the way you see yourself, and the way others see you. If you're a man in your 50s or beyond, you know that pulling away isn't something you plan. It's something that happens. Not out of spite, but out of a lifetime's worth of lessons. You've learned that silence can be safer than the wrong words. You've seen that not every battle is worth the fight, and you've felt the weight of being misunderstood when you try to explain. This moment, when you step back, can feel like a refuge, but it can also be the space where relationships drift if you're not careful. This is why understanding your own reasons for withdrawing matters. Not just for them, but for you. Because when you know your own patterns, you can choose when to return. On your terms, with your dignity intact. Have you ever wondered why a man you love sometimes steps back? Not because he's leaving, but because he's retreating into a silence that feels like a wall? It's not rejection. It's not anger. It's something deeper, something rooted in a part of him that few get to see. This is the shadow side of the mature man, the quiet, sacred space where love and fear dance, where strength meets vulnerability, and where pulling away is not about pushing you out, but about trying to hold himself together. If you've ever felt confused, hurt, or distant in your relationship with a man over 50, this story is for you. Because to understand why he pulls away is to understand a journey few speak of, the journey back to himself. For many men, the years bring wisdom, calm, and a steadying presence, but they also bring a reckoning, with wounds, regrets, and fears that never quite left. When a man pulls away, it's often not from you, but from the storm inside him. He carries battles you cannot see, the ache of dreams deferred, the silence of unspoken pain, the weight of expectation unmet. It is here, in this hidden chamber of his soul, that love feels both fragile and fierce. He retreats not to abandon, but to protect. Not to shut you out, but to keep from falling apart. And sometimes, the deepest love looks like distance. In a world that often demands men to be unbreakable, to carry the weight without flinching, the mature man wrestles with a secret fear. What if I show the real me, the hurt, the doubts, the cracks, I will lose you? This fear, ancient and silent, pushes him to pull back, to become quieter, to shield himself in solitude. It is not a rejection of love, but a defense against vulnerability. Because vulnerability feels like risk, and risk feels like danger. He may seem distant, cold, or uninterested, but beneath that stillness is a heart that aches to be accepted exactly as it is, whole and flawed. This is the shadow where he hides, not out of malice but out of survival. Michael was the man who kissed Anna's forehead every morning. Even after 20 years, he remembered her coffee order. He rubbed her shoulders after long days. He even memorized the way she bit her lip when she was nervous. He loved her, no doubt about it, but one autumn, without warning, he began to pull away. Not with anger, not with harsh words, but with silence. He stopped bringing up his dreams, stopped reaching for her hand in the car. His eyes were kind, but far. Anna asked, "Are you okay?" He said, "Just tired." But the truth was more complicated. Michael was confronting a part of himself he had buried for years. A fear that loving too much would make him weak. A shadow of childhood where vulnerability meant shame. Where needing someone made you unsafe. So like many men, he retreated into the cave. Not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much and didn't know how to hold it all. That's the heartbreak. Men often pull away, not when they've stopped loving you, but when they love you so deeply, it wakes up their oldest wounds. They don't need distance, they need healing, and space to wrestle with a truth they never learned to name. He seems calm on the outside, still mows the lawn, still jokes with the waiter, still shows up to family dinners. But something inside him is tightening. You won't see it in his face, because he's learned to wear masks. Not to deceive you, but to survive. Beneath that composed exterior is a war no one taught him how to fight. A war between his desire to be known and his fear that once you truly see him, you'll leave. That's the paradox of many mature men. They crave intimacy but have no map for it. They want to be held, but fear being exposed. So they pull away, quietly, respectfully, even lovingly. They'll say they need space, that they're figuring things out. But what they're really saying is, I'm standing on the edge of my own emotional cliff, and I don't know if I'll survive the fall into your arms. He may not even know that's what he's doing, because men aren't taught to recognize emotional threat, only physical ones. They don't realize that the act of staying when you feel raw and vulnerable is more courageous than walking away. And so they go, not out of rejection, but out of ancient self-protection. Here's the truth no one tells you. You can't chase a man back into his own heart, especially not one who's spent decades learning to protect it. When he pulls away, the instinct might be to fix, explain, or plead. But what he needs is not pursuit. What he needs is invitation. A safe space, an open presence, a gentle reminder that he's not just loved for what he does, but for who he is, even when he's uncertain, imperfect, or lost. If you are the woman who loves this man, know this. His withdrawal is not your failure. His silence is not your punishment. His distance is not your dismissal. It's a reflection of his inner blueprint, shaped by years of holding himself together, being the strong one, the provider, the fixer. But he wasn't taught how to be held. That's where your invitation comes in. Not a demand, not a strategy, not an ultimatum, just the steady flame of presence, the courage to stay rooted in your own self-worth, without needing to chase or collapse. Sometimes the greatest act of love is waiting at the doorway of his return, with open arms, but never losing yourself in the process. Because real love doesn't demand wholeness, it welcomes the becoming. There's a woman named Elise, married 27 years. Her husband, Mark, began to pull away in his 50s. No fights, no affair, just silence. He stopped holding her hand, started staying later at work, smiled less. At first, she tried to talk it out. Then she tried to please. Then she blamed herself. But one day, she stopped chasing. Not out of anger, but wisdom. She began tending her own joy again. She gardened, took long walks, met with old friends, and every evening she left his tea at the table. No questions, no pressure. Weeks passed. Then one night, Mark sat across from her and whispered, "I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I didn't know how to show it anymore." Sometimes, silence isn't rejection. It's a scared man waiting for permission to return. Sometimes when a man pulls away, it isn't because he's closing a door. It's because he's building the strength to open it again, with clarity, with honesty, with a heart that is whole. If you're a man listening, honor that space when you need it. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. If you're a woman listening, know that his silence may be the bridge back to him, not the wall that keeps you apart. In the end, distance isn't always the death of connection. Sometimes it's the soil where deeper love takes root. Call to action. If this spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to understand the unspoken language between men and women. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. We have more conversations that matter.